What's up, photo freaks? Coming to you from my dorm room today. That's partly so that I can show off the plywood palace that's serving as the launching point for all of the photo adventures you've been following. But I also want to show you the artwork that I've selected for my wall that's been keeping those adventures inspired every day. And then, before we go out and make a photo, I want to show you the gear that I'm bringing along. We'll jump on a train bound for the beautiful Scottish capital city of Edinburgh, where I'll make my third and hopefully final attempt at photographing the historic Edinburgh Castle. You're waiting for me. Okay, this first print you'll probably recognize. This is a large $5 poster print of Katsushika Hokusai's famous woodblock print, The Great Wave off of Canon. Obviously, it's a beautiful picture, a recognizable picture. Also has some special importance to me because this is the area that I lived in Japan. So I always think it's interesting that maybe the most famous piece of, or at least recognizable piece of Japanese artwork represents the area where I lived for 2 years. Before I get into this one, I will say it would be nice to have something right here in this part of the wall, like maybe a calendar. I'll give you a preview of what that might look like, just if you're, curious. This print here is not the work of a famous artist. This is the work of a photographer that I met in a shopping mall. His name's Tommy McLean. So when I saw Tommy selling the prints of his work at the local shopping mall, of course, I said, that's me. I gotta have a talk with this guy and see what his experience has been like photographing in Scotland. I might be able to make one print like this if I'm lucky for the short time that I have in Scotland. This is part of a large body of work that's been the product of Tommy McLean's essentially lifelong pursuit of making images. So I think that's like a good demonstrative addition to the discussion that I was having earlier about travel photography, right? It's not my goal to show up here with the hubris of saying, oh, that I'm like such a good photographer that I'm gonna negate the work that native landscapers and painters and people who are really familiar with the visual language of this area have been doing for centuries, right? So I'm trying to make this more of a listening and learning experience than a speaking and producing experience. So while I was discussing Tommy's experiences with him in his sales booth, I showed him an image that I had made just the day before of Edinburgh Castle. So he pulled an example out from his inventory, and there was this beautiful, really intimate and inviting wide-angle photo from close-up of the castle. Nothing like what I would have even considered making. And it really inspired me that my effort to photograph the castle had been quite perfunctory. In fact, what I had made was what I think of as like a tour bus photo, right? It was just a photo of where I happened to find myself in the presence of that landmark. So Tommy's generosity with his knowledge of the area actually inspired me to go back and search for better compositions. So in that first image, it sort of presented itself to me like exactly the way you see it. I stepped off the bus, and then there was that opportunity there with the crescent moon right beside the castle. Snapped it in the bag, good to go. I might have made the mistake of just saying Veni Vidi Vici, got the shot. Fortunately, I encountered Tommy that day, or else I might have made the mistake of thinking that my photography work was in the bag as far as this landmark is concerned. But I decided to come back, and I've actually been in Edinburgh for a couple of days. The first day explored nightlife around the city with my flatmates, and then they've all gone back to campus, and I've given myself an extra day here to further my studies into this photo subject. So I've actually had a great morning out here splashing around in the rain on the streets of Edinburgh. Most of the morning I had the city to myself, and I've just been exploring little avenues and ways into and around the closer areas of the castle. So I think I'm going to stage my composition around this spot that I'm about to show you, and that's for two reasons. First, it's very close to this public restroom, which is nice. Sometimes I get excited when I'm out photographing, and I find I've got some extra natural needs to attend to. Maybe that's something you can relate to. Secondly, of all the compositions that I found, this one has maybe the most striking usage of the leaves that are about to change in a couple weeks. So I think in a future video I'll talk a little bit about what color has meant in my studies of Scotland, but for today I'll just say that in hoping to feature the castle in fall foliage, this composition is going to work really well because we've got lots of trees that are turning and just about to turn. So this is a project that hopefully I can complete in the next 2 or 3 weeks. first photo that I took is a good example of maybe a cursory photo that I would make like specifically related to the weather events, or like just the way I happen to take it, just the way I happen to find it, right? A tour bus opportunity. Now I'm honing in and trying to find ways to really decorate and showcase this landmark in its environment. So I'll do a couple of extra studies, but really I'm just making some very shallow aesthetic considerations. If I were commissioned to photograph the castle, I would take this maybe even a step further. So like for example, maybe this photo that I was commissioned to make of the Split Rock lighthouse, right? It was really important that I catch it in these conditions and find a composition that featured the waves and the breakers because of the story of the lighthouse and the relevance of those natural features to why that lighthouse exists. The same thing for like this photo of the George Rogers Clark Memorial in Vincennes, my hometown, right? It was important for me to find this composition that showcased all the different intermixed architecture forms, because that's relevant to what I wanted to express about the location of the memorial. If I wanted to take this even further, I might do some research into the castle, but for today I'm really primarily just concerned in making it look real good. Look at this beautiful mess. This is pretty much all the camera gear I brought to Scotland. We're not going to use all this today, but I just wanted to show you what I have with me. With the exception of my stills camera and tripod, I'll show you that later, but it's recording me right now. Normally when I go out to make a photo video like I'm going to do today, it's not the first time that I've visited the location and I've got a pretty good idea what gear I need to bring along. So I only bring along the gear that's absolutely necessary, and that allows me to use this really small sling bag when I go out to make these photography vlogs. I'll show you that here in a second, but first let me show you what I'm not going to bring along, which is this Canon EF 100 to 400 millimeter f4.5 to 5.6. It's really an awesome lens and I love it, but I don't need it, so we're going to leave all this big chunk of weight here in the dorm. And that's going to leave me with just the bare essentials, which is really handy when I just want to get in, make a piece of video, and without attracting a lot of attention, and get out. And that work will center around this little compact EOS M6 Mark II, Canon EOS M6 Mark II, sort of like a compact APS-C travel camera. I'm getting a lot of utility out of this. I use this as my wildlife camera. I use it for all the vlog videos. It does uncropped 4K video. This is also the only standard focal length camera equipment that I brought. So I'm doing all my standard focal length photography with it as well. It's equipped with a 15 to 45 millimeter kit lens. And it's got like a 33 megapixel sensor, so it's actually really good for stills as well. And then I will supplement this with some shallow depth of field video shots from the Canon Nifty 50 lens, the 50 1.8. And that's got the Viltrox speed booster on it, and then a little neutral density filter, variable neutral density filter on top, and I'll just throw that in a sock, and then I can get this whole 15 to 45 and shallow depth of field 50 millimeter lens all in the top pocket of the camera bag. And then I'm catching audio with this Rode Wireless Go transmitter and receiver, so this lets me put the camera basically wherever I want. And that goes right in the top pocket of the bag. I usually put my filters in there too. So these are, I don't know, this is a cheap little filter pouch kit, and it's got a stack of 77 millimeter filters. So these are like my backup filters really. There's a 3-stop ND filter in there and a cheap polarizer in case my regular polarizer's out of service, but this is my normal, it's a Hoya 82 millimeter filter on an adapter ring, polarizing filter, which I think I'll probably use it, so we'll throw it in the bag. Then we'll put some extra camera batteries and memory cards for all the cameras in the, there's a little top pocket here I can use for that. And then that just leaves the big open gap in the front for me to stick the Canon EOS R, which is my stills camera, and today I'll have the 16 to 35 millimeter f4 lens hooked onto that, and that'll just stay on the camera all day to get our one still photo. What's really great about this is everything fits in this bag with both tripods in this one little sling bag, so yeah, for a little photo video setup, this is totally killer. I'll need one last piece of gear, University of Stirling hoodie. Alright, now I can pass for a local. Let's go make some photo. Some photos. Let's go. Okay, so I'm coming down to the resting spot of my tripod for the evening. Edinburgh Castle here on this side. All the hustle and bustle of Princess Street over here on this side. Unfortunately, I had to come on Friday evening, but this is one of the only good weather days we've had this week. Foliage, I'd say not quite optimal, but within a couple of sliders in Photoshop of dialing it right in. And sky looks fantastic. Stopped for about an hour of daylight left to get some blue sky, and also stick around to get some color. Okay, I'm set up, dialed in. This wall here in front of me, fortunately, is there just on the other side of it. Unbeknownst to me, Edinburgh is celebrating its Oktoberfest tonight, so there's a huge party going on the other side of the wall. But for my purposes, it's not only blocking out that party, it's also affording a nice leading line into this scene. For me, like I said, that's sort of a shallow aesthetic purpose. It's actually a wall of headstones and memorial stones from like the 1700s. I don't know what they are. If I were to do more research on it, then I could probably feature it in a more meaningful way. Right, same thing with the castle. I've got it framed up to show off this angle that I like. I very rarely like to shoot structures where you see them straight from the front, from one face, right? I like to get a little more depth to it, and I achieve that by coming at it at a corner. And if you saw from the first photograph that I made, the castle complex contains a lot of different buildings, and probably some are older and some are newer. I don't know which building is which. I just picked the prettiest one. So that's another example of like, I'm just making shallow aesthetic decisions to make a pretty picture here. It'll look great on Instagram, maybe a good fine art print. A born Edinburgher or someone more familiar with this, or maybe, a Matt who's done a little more research, could make a more meaningful photograph of this scene. Okay, the sky's probably at its peak blue and gold palette, and it's complementing the foliage very nicely like I expected, so I'll go ahead and start making some photographs now. I have really enjoyed making this photograph. Just about every pedestrian that's walked by and seen me here photographing has gotten out their phone and made a photograph for themselves. It's really rewarding to find a composition and make something off the tourism path. I spent hours searching Instagram for different places, locations, and compositions of Edinburgh Castle, and I haven't seen this one anywhere. I'm sure I'm not the first person to find it, but it's definitely different. The sun's going down behind me now, so there's still a little bit of light left on the castle, and the sky behind the castle in the background is taking on those really beautiful purple and blue and pink hues. I don't know if they'll suit the color palette with the rest of the scene, but it looks really great right now to the eye. My whole experience up until now has just been watching the light change, stopping, taking a photograph every now and then, enjoying the scene, meeting passerbys. Just a really great evening here in Edinburgh, photographing Edinburgh Castle. Well, for 6 p.m. this Oktoberfest is hopping.
So I guess they really do know how to party in Edinburgh.
The entire industry is threatening to
That's right.
strike.
That's a wrap for this photo adventure. Thanks for tagging along. I hope you enjoyed it. It's quite the process getting this photo to completion. So if you liked it, leave a comment down below. Be sure you like the video so YouTube knows you watched it on purpose. And if you're not subscribed, then just get out of here. I don't know what's coming up on the channel, and if you don't subscribe, then neither do you. But until I see you then, you guys keep an eye out and a foot forward. Thanks for watching.